Welcome to week 10 of The Artist Way, where we speak about self-protection. Have you ever felt that you trying to protect yourself from something has actually created some kind of stagnant flow in your life? That is what this week's Artist Way is about. We will talk about all the specific little things that are blocking us. And then, at the end, we will make a little exercise to dig a little bit deeper. Which is actually really interesting about this week's Artist Way is that Julia has slowly built up our willingness to encounter ourselves. And this week's exercise is really, really powerful. So powerful that I'm still kind of stomaching it. I just did it, and it's interesting when you ask the right questions, what kind of answers you get. So let's go. Creativity isn't about forcing ideas. It is about letting energy come through and flow without resistance. But what if I told you that the reason your energy is not flowing is actually your instinct to self-protect? Why is this chapter so powerful? Because Julia shows us exactly what the areas are where we are protecting ourselves from uncomfortable feelings, uncomfortable truths, lack of boundaries, and we learn to identify these areas. And at the end, also at the end of this video, there is a task about how to dig a little bit deeper and really name these uncomfortable feelings that we come up against without knowing, and that really block us from our path and essentially from any kind of change. So creativity is like energy flowing through us. We know that, we understand that, and that means that we would have to let go of a certain level of resistance. And this resistance is actually fear. There's the fear of letting go, the fear of allowing something to create through us. It would require for us to be very comfortable with an undefined level of change. We can't just do that. We need to understand what are these different areas, and then we need to step by step learn that it is okay to let go. Not make big steps, but this is a very important concept in the book. Learn it in small steps that are reciprocated by a joyful experience. Common things that we use to not allow this energy to flow are overworking, eating, drinking, in this case alcohol, media, and for example something like love addiction. These behaviors misuse our faculties so we can avoid the discomfort of change. But how do we identify and address these blocks? Well, the biggest one is probably the one that you are most used to and most eager to defend. So if you get really angry with the following exercise at the end about certain areas, then you know that this is probably the one where you're most blocked. I was, for example, very eager to defend the excessive energy I used to connect with my family and friends. And now you might think, oh, that's a very positive thing. Well, it depends if I need the energy for other things, not necessarily. And also, a relationship can be reciprocal. So I don't need to be the one who does all the activity, all the work in the relationship. Other people can also come and meet me halfway. That's just one example. Another socially very rewarded example is workaholism. So when we overwork ourselves, when we work the weekends, when we work the mornings, when we tell our loved ones that we don't have time for them, that there's no time for family evenings together, then there's something going on there. There is a secondary gain, and most likely we are trying to avoid the fear of losing control, the fear of change by these behaviors. As you may remember, the course in Julia's book is very similar to a 12-step program by Alcoholics Anonymous. I would like to reiterate the fact that this book is about behavior addictions, where essentially these behaviors step in the place where our creativity would be. Let's change where we are. A little bit of a mix-up. The first step is to name these disruptive behaviors and then create a bottom line or a boundary. For example, for me, it was I wanted to stop watching certain YouTube videos that I would use to kind of numb out and not feel my actual feelings. Some things I can restrict. For example, I also really love cooking videos. Other things I can really just completely abandon. For example, I set the intention today to not watch any more true crime videos because they just took up an excessive block of my time. So whatever it is for you, you will be able to identify them and then to set intentions and to set boundaries and to name boundaries and to really come into what it is and how to stop doing these things. Seeing how much these behaviors are not serving us anymore. They might have in the past. Thank you for, doing this for me in the past, but now you need to go because you're not serving me anymore. And you're actually, creating obstacles in my path that I don't need. We need to continue doing the morning pages and the artist states. And these small steps create trust again that once we relinquish our control, we will actually be held by this creative energy. And we can flow along and just allow change to happen. Something that is also misunderstood is the role of kind of dry periods in our creativity. It's perfectly normal to every now and then feel like you're in a desert and there's absolutely nothing happening. You know, life is cyclical, and it's important to know that after the desert, there will be a lush environment again, and just keep doing the exercises that help you, even though they might feel uncomfortable, even though you might have doubt. Actually, doubt and drought are really close, because that's essentially what it is, a lack of faith that our creativity will support us. When we speak about support, we also need to talk about the role of fame and comparison. Julia, in her book, explains this kind of drug of fame, where you read a magazine and you see how all the other people live and how great they are and how rich they are and how gorgeous they are. Actually, this has really been exacerbated by the modern time, where Instagram scrolling and scrolling envy is taking all the fun out of our normal creativity in our normal life, because we think everybody else has it better than us, and we desire the external validation of fame and wanting to be in their place. So competition, in a way, poisons our creativity by focusing on other people instead of on ourselves and our own process. And that is the ego's demand for instant gratification, for instant perfection. In order to grow, sometimes, the first steps are not as glamorous as the end result when you have practiced your craft. And the ego will want to try and shut everything down, the whole process altogether. It's actually what happened to me when I tried the artist way for the first time. I only made it into week 4 because I couldn't really sustain media deprivation. I was really addicted. And instead of continuing the morning pages, I gave up. So this time I am determined to continue and to really allow Julia's advice to transform my life. What we want to do is to embrace our authentic creativity. And that's also what is the thing that is sometimes fascinating in other people's work, is that this prism that I mentioned at the beginning, whatever they're doing as a filter that the light comes through, it really shows in how original and authentic they are. And the real victory is to just continue our own work. No matter what the external influences are, no matter what the internal influences or voices are, what we want to do is we want to set all of this aside and create a practice, and through that practice, keep being on our path. That is what actually removes the obstacle in our way. The powerful task this week is called the deadlies. And the deadlies are several categories of our life where we need to figure out how they impacted us negatively. So these are family and friends, food, money, work, alcohol, sex, and drugs. Then we put them in an envelope, or in my case, we put them in a milk jug, because that's what I have. And then we draw them. 7 times we draw. We can also draw the same one twice. Now I drew alcohol. And then for this word, we write down 5 different ways in which this thing has impacted us negatively. And it absolutely blew my mind. I was not even aware the kind of prejudices I had against, for example, money. And once it's all clear and in the open, I can understand all of a sudden why I behave in certain ways that I do behave, or why I show up to certain family ventures the way I do. Because there has been an experience, and from there a belief that has been formed around this thing. Let me give you one example. And this ties in back to the comparison bit. For example, I always thought that other families had more money than mine. And that meant that they had more freedom, more fun, more security. But I also felt ashamed of being, envious of them. So it was kind of like a double bind around money. I wanted it, but I couldn't really allow myself to want it. And it had a very negative connotation, when money in and of itself is a neutral thing. And seeing it black and white out in the open gave it even a humorous touch. My mind was really, really blown after going through money, family and friends, food, drugs, sex, and again family and friends, because I drew it twice, and then alcohol. It really helped me process a few things that were kind of stuck. This exercise had me in my feels for an hour and a half. So to counter that, as we pick and choose our exercises, I picked the happiness touchstone exercise. And the happiness touchstones are whatever makes me really happy. So I made a quick list. Colorful, sparkly, metallic pens. Through the awareness exercises in the first weeks, I realized that there were small things that nourish my soul. And for some reason, Metallic pens are amongst that. I really like how they break the light on the writing and it looks like magical ink. Then beautiful teacups, the sounds of friends laughing, my lover's smile under a blue sky, fresh herbs, fast soup, you get it. There's a lot of beautiful things that are very, very personal to every human being and that we try to incorporate, and then she gives us the task to actually pick one thing and to make sure that we see it, encounter it, and really treat ourselves as the precious object, to tie it back to one of the older exercises in one of the other weeks that deserves to be nourished through these things that are happiness touchdowns. Another exercise that is also part of this kind of conundrum of awareness building is to set a bottom line. So if there are things that are really bothering you, that you don't want to repeat, you are now invited to make a list of them and to really kind of set those boundaries in a conscious written way. For me, for example, it was this true crime videos, no more of them, no more watching of them, no more, not a half an hour, not 15 minutes, just not at all. I really want this out of my life. These episodes are just way too long. They're lovely, but no, I'm numbing myself with them. So that was one example that I really made a firm boundary for myself, created a firm boundary. And I expect this boundary now to come up when I try and watch those videos. Now that we have named and investigated the obstacles in our way and hopefully rolled them to the side to continue on our path, we are well on our way to the next week's topic, and that is autonomy. So see you next week, where we will speak about how to feel autonomous in our lives.